Hello everyone, welcome to a new video in my channel. I know I don't post as regularly as everybody. Today I want to listen to a video and react. The name of the video is The Titans of Japan Incorporated, Mitsubishi, Mitsui, Sumitomo, Itoshi, and more. This is a subject that I like a lot because many of the companies, the big titan companies of Japan, they used to be called Keiretsu, Zaibatsu, which were the families that control the business in Japan. It wasn't a business community, it was mostly a warrior community that transitioned into a business community, and after or during industrialization, these warrior families transition into these business families, and they all gather around the emperor and use his political power to influence Japan into entering the world war. And after they lost the world war, the international community, led by the U.S., decided to break the Zaibatsu into many different companies, and those corporations became, well, those family business became corporations, which is called for them Zaibatsu, Keiretsu. And so I wanna listen to the video and react a little bit with you. I hope you can listen to the video too.
Of Japan's mightiest companies, the Sogo Shoshas. This is the history of the Japanese trading conglomerates that literally built the Japanese economy. Hello, and welcome to Konichi Value. I am thrilled to bring you another in-depth, comprehensive report on Japan's financial industry. This time, my focus is on the Sogo Shoshas, the Japanese trading companies that have played a significant role in shaping the country's economy for decades.
You hear, he's not using Zaibatsu or Keiretsu, he's using Sogo Social, something like that, to describe these communities that drive business in the island of Japan.
Writing articles and creating videos of this caliber requires a massive amount of time, research, and dedication. I put in countless of hours to ensure that this piece provided with the most comprehensive information about the Sogo Shoshas, their history.
Sogo Shoshas. So let's keep listening.
Their successes and their challenges. However, all of this work comes at a cost. To keep bringing you high quality in-depth reporting on Japan,
we're gonna skip that part because it's just a self-announcement.
I would really like your support. Go into konichivalue.com. Not only will you get support me with more supporters, thank you so much for your continued support. And I hope you enjoyed this video on the Sogo Shoshas.
Sogo Shosha. It's a new word for me, so I like it. I know you guys think about Japan, going to Japan. We romanticize it sometimes, and I'm starting not to romanticize it, to look at it in a more pragmatic view, if you might say so.
Best regards, Ray Saito. This text is mainly inspired by Marubeni Research Institute's excellent research papers on the matter. the 12-part Sogo Shosha series from Patrick Ryan at the Japan Times, and Nikkei Asia's coverage of the resurgence of the Sogo Shoshas. I've also taken inspiration from multiple smaller articles and videos that can be found in this video's appendix. At the height of Japan's economic boom in the latter half of the 20th century, the Sogo Shoshas stood tall as the powerhouse conglomerates that dominated the global and Japanese business world. They were the epitome of Japan's rise as an economic superpower, a symbol of the country's unrivaled might and prowess in the corporate world. With their vast network and immense resources, these trading companies came to control a large portion of the country's exports, imports, and investment flows. They were the kingmakers, the power brokers, and the gatekeepers of the Japanese economy.
Did you listen to that? So this group of families, they are the kingmakers, the ones that can get you inside the club. Which club? Well, the club of people with money, with resources, with everything you need to be, in a way, happy.
However, the Sogo Shosha's reign was not meant to last forever. As the Japanese economy matured and globalization intensified, the landscape of the business world began to shift. Companies that focused on specific segments, such as electronics, automotives, and finance, rose to prominence, pushing the Sogo Shoshas to the sidelines. The once mighty conglomerates were considered outdated, their business models no longer relevant in a rapidly changing world. But, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, the Sogo Shoshas clawed their way back. Through a combination of strategic investments, divestments, and cost-cutting measures, they managed to weather the storm and remain relevant in the 21st century.
I want you to listen to what he just said. Okay, so investments, divestments, cost-cutting, and this is all you think when you have a capital. Listen to it again, because it's like the key things that the people with capital think.
While they weathered the investments, that clawed their way back. Through a combination of strategic
investments and disinvestments. What parts of the economy can I put money in that are gonna make me a bigger percentage of gain? Just looking for parts of the economy that are booming, they are growing, that you can measure. It's growing higher than other parts of the economy. Divestments, it's what investments I already have that I need to take my money out of them because they are not growing fast enough for me to gain a profit. And so you could argue, are you measuring those percentages with the correct tool? I'm talking about analytic tools, not real tools, because you can fake it. I mean, most of the business that I know, at a time, not always, but sometimes they are following the wrong indexes, or they are following a synthetic index, which doesn't indicate that they are generating value for the company, for the shareholders, or for the employees, and that's what I say. It's fake. It's not real productivity. But some people might say, you can put on the comments, hey, you're wrong. This is wrong for this reason. This is wrong for that reason. In my experience, sometimes they follow the wrong indexes, which shows growth. The other things, the other indexes, the other actions that people with capital have. Let's listen.
Investments, divestment and cost-cutting measures?
Cost-cutting measures. They manage to weather the storm and remain relevant in the 21st century. Cost-cutting, well, in my view, cost-cutting is a measure that you do on the short term just to stay afloat, to balance your to balance an imbalanced company statement of assets, and cost cutting might be good in the short run, but you have to make an analysis of cost cutting on the long term to check out if you're not missing out on investments that might help you on the long run. If you get out of those investments just because you need short-term gains, you're gonna have a bad time on the long term, and then you're gonna be looking at yourself like, let's say, people that got caught in the happiness, in the moment of doing something impulsive when they shouldn't have done that, and they are paying the price on the long term. So it's good to do cost cutting, but sometimes you're gonna regret it on the long end. So let's keep listening.
They managed to weather the storm and remain relevant in the 21st century. While they still trade at low multiples compared to the overall market, these conglomerates continue to play a significant role in the Japanese economy, demonstrating their resilience and tenacity that made them the dominant forces they once were. What are Sogo Shoshas? Japan's Sogo Shosha is a business model like no other. Dating back to before World War II, these behemoth organizations led the nation through its post-war reconstruction period and the subsequent period of rapid economic growth. Unlike other companies, the concept of Sogo Shosha is a purely Japanese one. While there are trading companies in other countries that are similar to Sogo Shoshas, they do not hold a candle to the might of these Japanese constructions. The 7 major Sogo Shoshas, including Itochu, Mitsubishi Corporation, Marubeni, and Mitsui, are often
Itochu, Marubeni, Mitsui Corporation, or Mitsubishi.
referred to
If you
as the key.
Some of those are construction companies, but for example, Mitsubishi started as a trading company that used boats and large ships. Then they started making their own, and during the World War, they're starting making everything. Transport, pencils, everything was Mitsubishi. There was an area of Japan in which everything that you buy had the Mitsubishi brand. I don't know if it was just branded as Mitsubishi's and they bought it from different parts, or if they made it themselves. I've seen televisions that are made by Mitsubishi. Maybe on the outside, I didn't open the televisions and see if they had Korean or American components, but the outside of the television said Mitsubishi.
King of commerce, and their impact on the global stage cannot be overstated. The root of the Sogo Shoshas can be traced back to the end of the Edo period, 1603 to 1867, where the first private trading company, Kameyama Shachu, later Kaien Tai, was established by Ryoma Sakamoto in 1865. Sogo Shosha companies can be broadly divided into 2 categories. Regional Sogo Shoshas that specialize in a specific region, such as Europe or the Middle East, or industry-specific sogo shoshas that concentrate on a particular business sector, such as food or fashion. However,
this is a very important distinction because regional sogo shoshas would behave as a corporation. Especially in banking, they would start controlling all of the business through banking within a region. So ports, transport, any raw material handling or extracting, business that have nothing to do with the original business, such as bars, entertainment, liquor. Any business it was like a guerrilla or a guerrilla attitude toward business, that any business that open it within your region has to be in your portfolio from on one way or another. Anything that makes a profit on your land, you need to have a cut of that. That's the regional approach to sogo shosha. The other approach, which is industry focused, we're talking about, for example, Toyota today, that they only make cars. And the strategy for Toyota is just to focus on other businesses that are on that industry, to get a pool, to get a group of investments for suppliers and customers within that region, within that industry. So they don't care if Toyota is in Japan, but they need to have investments or another participation within businesses all around the world. It could be North America, South America, it could be in Europe, it could be in Africa. They don't care. As long as you're good for their business sector, not for the region, they are going to invest resources on developing and nurturing and conserving that part of the business. This is a very, very good distinction of strategy. I think the strategy, the first one, which is regional, it's like in nature. You can see that in nature with, I said an example, gorillas, but the territorial animals would do this, like wolves, like I'm thinking, and I think I'm from Mexico, and so I think in Mexico we don't have this strategy of investment in industry. We have the family, the regional, the regional or clan. They act in clans, and they're very jealous of other clans. Instead of focusing on one kind of investments, no, they are very regional, very, I already said it, very familiar. You need to be within the family. This is very Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages business, that's how business started in the Middle Ages. Only within the family. You have to be within the family to be part of the value creating business. I think it's I prefer the other one, the industry focused one. But I'm not gonna say it's wrong. It's just an approach to business.
The biggest sogo shoshas are truly a one-stop shop, handling everything from hardware and software developments to construction, farming, factories, retail, medicine, and even government functions, such as laws and infrastructure procurements. While trading companies can be found all over the world, there are very few that can even come close to the scale of operations and versatility of Japanese Sogo Shoshas. These giants have a global distribution network and utilize their financial resources to the fullest, with economic sizes that could rival some countries, truly making them a force to be reckoned with. The Sogo Shoshas have led some of the biggest projects in the world, and many of the largest factories, bridges, railways, and buildings have been created directly or indirectly through these companies. The origins of the Sogo Shosha, the Meiji period, 1868 to 1912. The emergence of the Sogo Shosha we can recognize today can be traced back to the late 1800s. This is when Japan emerged from a civil war and when the country was forced to open its borders to the west due to their superior military technology. The new government, under the auspice of the young Meiji Emperor, set out to build a strong military and rapidly industrialize the country to avoid being divided up by European powers after seeing how China was ruthlessly divided and conquered by them. To do this, the government took on the responsibility of developing various industries with the help of foreign experts. But as the government began to run out of money, it turned to private Japanese enterprises, selling off parts of various industries to them for extremely low prices. This was the beginning of the close cooperation between businesses and the government in Japan. To speed up the industrialization efforts, the Japanese government encouraged size and economies of scale within these enterprises, leading to the formation of family-owned, vertically integrated conglomerates known as the zaibatsu.
And he just said the word that I was hoping to, vertically integrated, vertically, like a pyramid. It could be a very wide or very narrow pyramid, but it's vertical integration. There's some people at the top taking decisions, and then there's everybody else at the bottom. You are not part of the business as an owner. You're part of a business as a employee, most people are part of a business as an employee. Everybody else at the top, it's not a part of a business. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying they shouldn't do that. I'm not saying it's just a way of doing business everywhere around the world. But I think it's kind of a diluted, kind of a it's not good for innovation. That's what I'm trying to say. Not that you have to be good in innovation in your business. If your business is going to stay the same for hundreds and hundreds, even millennia, like the church is a business. And if you look at church, their strategy, hasn't changed in millennia. It's still the same. Just influencers, the old kind of influencers. We have new ones. Just behavioral, working with people, and it has modernized in some ways or another. So it has incorporated technology. It has incorporated new ways of thinking about people. But at the end of the day, church, religion, it's a business to create consensus within a group of people. And so, yeah, some business do not need innovation. Some business will only thrive under innovative cycles. The Zaibatsu, the Keiretsu, the Shogo Shosha, it's if you have vertical integration, it's not good for business that require constant renovation, constant adapting to an environment that changes rapidly.
Zaibatsu is two kanji, or Japanese characters. Zai means wealth, and batsu means clique, clan, or in this case, family. By the 1900s, these conglomerates dominated the Japanese economy, with the top four making up 60% of the shares of the Japanese stock exchange. They became involved in a number of different industries, typically using one main bank and one main trading company to handle the needs of an entire value chain. This created efficiencies through the pooling of resources and allowed each company to concentrate on their core business. The trading firms for these organizations had to handle the supply and export needs for all the different companies in different industries in the group, making them the early precursors of the modern Sogo Shosha. The pre-World War II era, 1912 to 1939. During the Meiji period, the textile industry became Japan's largest, accounting for around 70% of Japan's exports by 1920. While there were many Japanese trading companies before World War II, only a few, such as Mitsui and Mitsubishi, can be considered true Sogo Shoshas.
The ones that I like, the ones that I love. Mitsubishi Corporation, Mitsui Corporation, they started as a clan, they started back in the day. They started as a family, and they have been through very good and bad cycles. And I think Mitsubishi has lost the opportunity of investing, getting in circuits, electronics, computing, the digital era. I don't know why there's not digital companies such as Facebook, such as Instagram, which are the same, such as TikTok, but from Japan, related to Mitsubishi. I haven't heard anything about that from Japan. I've heard it in China. They are developing. There's a new Great Wall in China, but it's not the physical wall. It's an internet wall. The Japanese haven't done that. They haven't created they haven't invested in an ecosystem that develops digital companies that create wealth from farming data from Mexico, from all around the world, creating a digital system that competes with the Chinese ones, the American ones. But again, I'm talking as a Mexican. Mexico, we don't have those platforms here. We don't have those companies. And I haven't heard of anyone investing in those companies either in Mexico or Japan to sort of compete and most likely create the regional digital space for farming those data points that are within Mexico and controlling that. We haven't created our walls, digital walls, to sort of shelter the Mexican population, from the influence of the Chinese and the Americans. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying that those platforms are bad for Mexico, for our economy. I'm just saying we don't have our own. It's like not farming your own land, letting someone else do it, and then maybe getting a cut of that. That's what I'm saying.
At the time, as most of the others were specialized traders involving only one or two industries. With the dawn of World War II on the horizon, the Japanese government started forcing the Sogo Shoshas, or Zaibatsus as they were called at the time, to exclusively produce military equipment or excreting direct control by outright nationalizing them. The companies basically became vessels for the government's war efforts, and their structures got melded together with the overall military machine. Simply put, for the time being, the Sogo Shoshas ceased to exist.
That's a very, that's very, how to say it? I'm talking about nationalizing industries. Very, very dangerous word, especially if you're around capitalists or people with a capitalist philosophy. Nationalizing, it's a dangerous word, but you can hear here, the Japanese did it, Mexico has done it, the United States has. Let's say they don't nationalize, but they create a set of rules, and they create a set of investments opportunities in which you could say it's a nationalized industry because it has no participation of other important people outside of politicians and the families that are behind those politicians, or corporations and the corporations behind those politicians. So for me, the nationalizing, it's a very dangerous word in the USA, but they have it, but they don't have it like you can see it in, let's say, Cuba or Russia or any other enterprises and businesses that have been nationalized. The owner and the owners are how you say this, the government. The government is running everything.
The post-World War II era, the Keiretsu, is born.
Keiretsu.
1949 to 1964. The formation of the modern Sogo Shosha began to take shape in the ashes of the previous ones, in the years following World War II. This was determined by a number of important developments, including the dissolution of the former Zaibatsu families and their companies following the war, the prevailing economic circumstances at the time, and the government's industrial policy aimed at rebuilding Japan. In the wake of World War II, the US-led occupation of Japan broke up the Zaibatsus, imprisoned many of their controlling family members, and forced them to sell many of their companies, as they were associated with the former military government. This provided an opportunity for large specialty traders that were less associated with Japan's former military government, like Marubeni, Itochu, Nichimen, Iwai, and others, to begin filling the void, gaining size and diversity in the process. As much of Japan's infrastructure had been destroyed during the war, the government embarked on a policy of division of labor among the Japanese industry. The government ordered the large manufacturers to substantially increase their output by forcing the largest banks to loan the major manufacturers whatever funds they had available, and the trading companies to concentrate on import and export of the manufactured goods. Given Japan's lack of raw materials, energy resources, and foreign currencies at the time, the Sogo Shosha's role in rebuilding Japan's economy would become significant. As the Korean War broke out in the early 1950s, the former Zaibatsu, Sogo Shoshas, began to re-emerge, forcing many trading companies to merge and be bought out by others to compete.
So if you listen to this, it's not that the business community decided to invest in Japan. It's not that they decided to create this wealth for everybody. There was this disdain for the business community, which failed to protect the Japan community, which they were ready to I don't want to sound ugly, but they were ready to die. They were ready to kill other people for their own good, for the good of their businesses. So this disdain, the politicians have they had no other option but to force the financial system to start to start to inject cash, to inject investment into whatever remaining industrial complexes they had, to rebuild them and start putting out products for the general public, because the general public was pissed off. Was pissed off about politicians and about all those businesses that they were working very hard and they were not getting a raise in their quality of life. They didn't want anything to do with the business community in Japan. They saw it as a failure of the country, and the politicians had no other option but to start. It sounds weird, but it's like bribing. It's like, hey, we need to bribe these people because there's gonna be a coup. We're not gonna be here, and if we let outside voices voice out that we're not giving a raise in the living standards for the families within Japan, then we're bad. We're gonna, if we do not industrialize to feed these people and to give them products and resources, the people from the outside, the Americans, the British, they're gonna create more resentment within the island, and we're gonna be toppled. We need to worry not only fighting amongst ourselves for our industries or for our regions. There's gonna be an outsider that's gonna come here. It's gonna offer the people in Japan a better life, and we're gonna lose those people. We're not gonna have an island anymore. I'm talking about back then, not right now. Right now, the Japanese, they have other issues.
The result was the emergence of 12 so-called Keiretsus, which would be further reduced to 9 by the latter half of the 1970s through further reorganization. While both Zaibatsus and Keiretsus are similar, they differ substantially in their ownership structure. Zaibatsus were powerful family-controlled conglomerates that dominated the Japanese economy before World War II, while Keiretsus are a collection of different shareholder groups that own each other's companies to cooperate and achieve economies of scale. The Sogo Shoshas supplied the raw and intermediate materials, industrial machinery, and equipment that Japanese industry needed to rebuild and re-industrialize, while also importing energy resources and foodstuffs to support the Japanese economy. As Japan's heavy industry re-emerged, the Sogo Shoshas began to export heavy, intermediate, and other goods, gaining the foreign currency Japan needed. They didn't focus on any one industry, but provided supply and handled the goods for various different industries, becoming the super supplier of the Japanese economy. The emergence of Japan as a consumer economy, 1964 to 1973. The 1964 Tokyo Olympics marked a new era in Japan's history, an era of growth and prosperity. The population was growing, incomes were rising, and the economy was expanding at an unprecedented rate. In fact, the Japanese economy averaged over 10% annual growth between 1957 and 1972, making it one of the fastest growing economies in history. With this growth came a surge in the sales of consumer goods such as televisions, refrigerators, automobiles, and housing. To sustain this unprecedented growth, Japan needed to import increasing amounts of raw and intermediate materials.
Okay, so this is one of the main strategy points when you turn your economy into a product, an industrial product economy instead of a service economy. We call it a secondary economy or second level economy. The competition, when you have your industrial processes that are frozen, and you have your capital either on product development and research and frozen, and your capital in people and your capital in infrastructure, you're gonna start fighting over resources. You're gonna start fighting over who's got the raw materials. Japan is an island with very low raw materials, and so it's a big, huge problem when you have all this capacity. You have the designs, you have the machinery, you have the people that know, but you can't get access to the raw materials. You have to invent new strategies, you have to invent new ideas just to gather those resources, those raw materials from all around the world. And it's super key. It's a global, you need to have, as a country and as an industry, you need to have a global strategies to get secure access to raw materials for your industry, for your region.
Given the country's lack of natural and energy resources, the government encouraged the Sogo Shoshas to invest in natural resource development. This decision was a turning point for the Sogo Shoshas, as their role increased from handling the distribution of consumer product manufacturing to also handling the extraction and import of the sophisticated raw and intermediate materials to make them. The Sogo Shoshas also expanded into new areas of business, such as domestic real estate development and food wholesaling and distribution. They were already supplying the construction industry with construction materials and equipment upstream.
For me, in my opinion, I'm not an investment or economist professional. I have followed the economy throughout my life, and he just mentions one or two of the investments that I think are not the safest on the long term. They might be, but it's right now I can see it. This is a conspiracy theory that I have, and it's related to construction. Construction for me, it's like an Achilles heel for an economy. If you let outsiders invest in your infrastructure and housing market, in the hopes that they are going to leave their investments there because you're kind of getting them a profit out of it, but you are also ballooning, you're also creating a bubble in that. When they go away, when they see that the percentage of investment is not there, what you promised, they're gonna take out their money, they're gonna invest it in something safer, and your overall economy is gonna plummet. It sounds weird. I had lived through various economic recessions throughout my life. They all have been related to the construction industry, and it's just like putting your money in the bank and then noticing that everybody is running through the bank to get out their savings and their jewelry and everything, but they can't let you because they don't have the money, or they don't have They have a paper that says that your assets are collateral for other investments. The housing market today is that, and it happened in Japan in the 90s. The housing market, the construction market industry, the construction industry, either for housing, for industrial complexes, or whichever industry you wanted, it became an asset that was overvalued instead of undervalued. And in investments, what you want to do is find these assets that right now are undervalued. Later in the future, you can predict with data, with numbers, with trends, with people within politics telling you, we are going to put investments in these areas, and you need to invest in these areas because we can guarantee you there's gonna be this percentage of growth. So sometimes people follow on that bubble, on that housing bubble. They put they bet everything on the same horse instead of divesting and investing in various industries, and also investing in creating your own industry and growing it. And that's why I'm sometimes people don't look for value to invest, and even uglier, they don't look to create value from something new. And this hierarchical, vertical business corporation structures, they do not thrive on long-term investments. They thrive on short, 3 months, maybe 6 months. They need to gain a capital return. They are set up for that. The private industry likes that. It's just extracting value wherever they could do it. If you set up an ecosystem in which you tell them, come here, invest your money here, in 3 months you're gonna get this other percentage, you're gonna be filled with that people, you're gonna be filled with those investments. But when time's up, if the 3-4 years pass, say goodbye to that money, say goodbye to that investment. You're gonna have to recreate a lower standard for everybody else, so those businesses come in. But if you invest in the long term, if you develop your own industries, if you develop your own industries without innovating, or innovating, you can copy what other people are doing and then apply it to your ecosystem. Those investments are gonna stay there. You're gonna be part of your region, and they are gonna start looking for other regions to be inside your value stream. But it's gonna start looking like the soccer teams from, let's say, Spain. You have soccer teams in La Liga, which they have football players from all over the world. They have players from Argentina, from Africa. They have players from Asia. They have players from North America. Yeah, the team is from Spain. The club, it's a Spanish club, but the players are not. And the players have to start identifying themselves as Spanish. Some of them get their second nationality in there. We need to start thinking on companies like that. The company is Japanese, the company is American, the company is But we are gathering all the talent from around the world, the talent that we can invest in, of course, and force, let's not say force, I think we shouldn't say force, and let that talent develop your human resources. Let that talent invest in other human resources and create these local new talents that can do whatever the other players that you brought from abroad. They don't have to stay here. They don't have to be part of the community. They can go back to their communities, but let them consult, let them invest, let them be a part of something in which they couldn't be on their own country, but they have the talent, they have the know-how. And let them be proud of what they make here in this second country that they came here and worked so hard to came here and adapt. They were excluded anyway. In their countries, they were excluded. Otherwise, they wouldn't come here. They wouldn't come to a second country. If they live in the first world, they wouldn't come to the second world. But they live in the first world. They are not part of that society. That society doesn't let them invest and create wealth. Let them come. Let them be part of this community. Create value for products, for services. Create value for other people. And let them be proud of what we can, what a new community can give them, that the community that they come from wouldn't let them in. Let's keep listening to the video.
However, to handle the building boom in Japan, construction companies needed the Sogo Shoshas financing, distribution, and planning functions for this large-scale type of real estate development. As incomes continued to rise and the Japanese diet shifted to more processed foods, the Sogo Shoshas further entered the food wholesaling and downstream food distribution markets. With many small food processors turning to the Sogo Shoshas to handle their logistics and distribution, they developed more integrated and expansive logistics networks. In addition to the growing presence in the domestic market, the Sogo Shoshas also began to export higher value-added manufactured goods, such as industrial machinery and market consumer products like automobiles and electronic appliances, to markets overseas. This expansion of the Sogo Shoshas overseas networks marked the most notable development during this era, and the emergence of their completely integrated supply chain business model. Simply put, they basically handled every part of a supply chain, from the mining of the raw material, the production of the good, to the store that sold the good to the end consumer. Japan becomes an advanced economy and faces the oil crisis head-on, 1973 to 1984. In the wake of the first oil shock in 1973, the world was thrown into chaos and the price of oil skyrocketed. The cause of the shock was the outcome of the Arab-Israeli War, in which Israel, supported by the US, emerged as victorious. The oil-producing Arab countries and their allies soon embargoed oil to the US and their allies, sending prices soaring. The devastating oil embargo dealt a crippling blow to the US, knocking it out of the infrastructure supply picture. While US manufacturers floundered, Japan's advanced engineering and technology capabilities shone. Driven by a need for efficiency and resource frugality due to the country's lack of natural resources, Japan's technological prowess proved to be a game changer. The Sogo Shoshas were perfectly positioned to seize the opportunity and take full advantage of the ensuing infrastructure development boom. Japan, however, was also hit by the oil embargo. It imported 90% of its oil from the Middle East and had a stockpile that was good for just 55 days. In December of 1973, the Japanese government ordered an immediate 20% cut in oil use and electric power to Japan's major industries, and cutbacks in leisure automobile usage. Economists predicted that the growth rate would plunge from 5% annually down to 0 or even negative territory, and inflation hit 9%. To assure future oil flows, Japan added suppliers outside of the Middle East, invested heavily in nuclear power, imposed conservation measures, and provided funding for Arab governments and the Palestinians. The crisis was a major factor in the long-run shift of Japan's economy away from oil-intensive industries, with investments shifting to electronics. This was also the start of Japan as a peacekeeper on the global stage by becoming the largest contributor of official development assistance, or
Whoa. They noticed they noticed early on, and they were really affected by their dependence on oil, the raw material that it's everywhere. Oil is in the textiles there I'm wearing. Oil is in my glasses. Oil is in the car I'm driving. And they started to see that they needed to divest in that. They needed to keep peace so the oil keep coming for their industries, and they needed to let in outsiders to their oil-based industries, because since the outsiders were providing the oil, the raw materials, they needed to let those outsiders in the game invest in Japanese industries, so they can also get a better profit from what they were getting just by selling their raw materials. It's quite impressive. I think it's what can I say? It's peacekeeping. Yeah, it keeps the peace because they gave a piece of the business to outsiders. Let's say they gave a piece of the business to relevant outsiders to the value stream on the business. And we have been together here for an hour. Thank you very much if you have been with me, listening with me to the video. I really appreciate it. I hope you can tell me all sorts of things that you like. If you are inspired, if you are mad, if you think I'm a communist, if you think I'm a capitalist, if you think whatever you want to say, go ahead and say it. I don't mind hearing to your feedback. I would read it and appreciate it. If you want to subscribe, yeah, go ahead, subscribe. If you want to leave a like, go ahead, leave a like. And I hope I have time to make more of these videos. And I hope you are interested also in this Japanese philosophy of creating businesses and managing businesses.
Or ODA for short, to developing countries. This further aided the Sogo Shosha's ability to create global relationships and expand abroad. Japanese automakers also benefited from the crisis, as the jump in gasoline prices helped their small fuel-efficient models to gain market share from the gas-guzzling Detroit competition. This triggered a drop in sales of American brands that lasted well into the 80s. Meanwhile, with their network of partners, logistics expertise, and project finance knowledge, the Sogo Shoshas quickly became the go-to for the planning and organization of large-scale projects, especially in oil and resource-rich countries. Their success in these ventures helped to establish Japan as a major exporter of advanced manufacturing and technology, and set the stage for the Sogo Shosha's continued expansion and growth in the decades to come. The bubble economy and the shift to services and investments abroad, 1984 to 1994. To understand more about Japan's bubble and its bubble burst, I highly recommend that you watch the video about Japan's bubble burst I made on this channel, or check out the article, Japan Bubble Burst, the party that wasn't supposed to end, on konichivalue.com. The late 1980s was a time of crisis for the Sogo Shoshas, as large Japanese manufacturers began to rely less on their services and develop their own logistics departments. A worldwide recession brought on by the second oil crisis only worsened the matter.
Second oil crisis, second. For me, it's really funny because it seems like we're always having a recession related to oil, related to housing, related to whatever you want to say. Not happy about it. I wish we could stop talking about recessions, which is also, for me, it's also known as a bunch of people in the hierarchical, in the top, made huge bad decisions on how to invest in an economy that should grow for it should grow to demonstrate that they are really able to create value, but they are not. And each recession shows that the business community and the politicians do not have a long-term strategy for value creation. And when I say the business community, please, 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 if you have a small business, if you're selling shirts, if you're selling food, if you're selling trips to outside, if you're selling, I'm not talking about you. That's why we're watching this video about the Keiretsu and the Zaibatsu. These gorillas, these huge corporations. The business community are those huge corporations. Those are the ones deciding where the money goes, where the investments go, and providing growth for their corporations. If we have a recession, it's because your business environment told everybody to invest their funds in something that didn't return the money that they expected, like the housing bubble, the oil embargo bubble, like the internet bubble. There's not such a thing as a secure investment. There's not such a thing as a secure thing in business. You might have privileged information, but it's different from having a secure investment. Let's continue on, because I think this is more than an hour. This video is supposed to be only half an hour, so I've been talking for half an hour too. Let's listen.
Plunging the Shoshas into what was dubbed the winter of the Sogo Shosha.
The winter.
But these players would not go down without a fight.
That reminds me of, you're gonna know my age for this comment, but the winter of Sogo Shoshas, the winter is coming, you know, it sounds like a medieval fantasy series I watched like 10 years ago or 6 years ago, Game of Thrones. Oh, winter is coming, winter is always here. If you ask me, winter is always here. We don't have any summer days now, but that's because I'm a grown-up and I have to work throughout the summers. But yeah, for me, winter is always here. Winter has always been here, and we haven't had any breaks in investments. The economy has been through all these winters. We always get winters. In the summers, they don't go like, wow. No, there's no more summers like they used to.
In a bold move, the Shoshas doubled down on their role from an intermediate to to an owner of supply sources. They increased their investments in manufacturers, processors, and distributors, securing the goods and materials necessary to protect themselves in the supply chain. The appreciation of the yen following the Plaza Accord in 1985 fueled the Sogo Shosha's overseas investments and alliances with foreign companies throughout the 80s and the 90s. They went on a buying rampage of which the world had never seen, gobbling up assets worldwide. No industry was off limits to the Sogo Shoshas, and during the 1990s, they owned or had a stake in some of the most notable companies in the world. They acquired a 10% stake in Compaq Computers, now part of HP, held a 20% stake in BAA, which operates Heathrow Airport, and even acquired a controlling stake in Universal Studios. They were also involved in the purchase of the iconic Rockefeller Center in New York, and owned a stake in the major US juice company Tropicana Products. They also started buying up companies in the services industry, from fast food chains like Dunkin' Donuts and KFC Japan, to health clubs like Bali Total Fitness and financial services, such as...
So he is explaining how Japan business community, so that they were not going to find the growth, the capital growth that they needed only within Japan, and they had to start divesting only in Japan and investing in businesses outside of Japan that would probably not only guarantee them short-term gains, but also long-term, not only long-term gains, but also status and stability. That's why you hear all these investments in the service and manufacturing business outside of Japan, and bringing those business models to Japan also. But if you have investments in very secure markets, in very secure industries, financially you look like you're a very stable conglomerate, very stable corporation, which has investments within your region, within your industry, on industries outside of your industry, within your region, and on regions outside. You look like very secure financially. Your corporation looks like you have a stake in every table. You have a say in every table. You have power. You have influence. And that locks in this aura, this appearance of stability, and unlocks investments opportunities for the short and long term. And it's a very, I would say it's a smart strategy. Sorry for my pronunciation. English is my second language, and it's I haven't seen that kind of investments or corporations doing that. Some Americans do, some investment funds do, the Chinese do it. In Latin America, it's just a couple of corporations. Yeah, I can think of FEMSA, which is from the northern region of Mexico. Salinas Group, which is from the center of Mexico, and sadly we don't have in the south of Mexico, we don't have investments and these new corporations ready to create opportunities in the primary, secondary, and tertiary economy. We don't have those kind of big corporations. We have a lot of investments from the outside, not in industry, but in tourism, and logistics, a lot of logistics, but not that much in industry. Mexico's industry is located in the north, and there's some industry in the south of Mexico. There should be more industry in the south of Mexico because we should have more logistics and industrial capital to manufacture goods within the south and trade it within the Gulf of Mexico and the Pacific. And this is, if I think outside of Mexico, big corporations outside of Mexico, they all related to oil. Brazil has Petrobras. I'm trying to think of a big corporation in Argentina, but nothing comes to mind. I'm trying to think of a big corporation for any of the big countries on the South America, and the only one that comes in is maybe Embraer, but Embraer makes planes, but I haven't seen Embraer branch outside of its industry. I think Embraer is locked in his region. I think Embraer hasn't started making partnerships with outsiders from its region to create trade and investments. I think they have some, but it's not a major player in North America or Europe or Asia, which Asia is just growing in the aerospace industry. It's not like, for example, the U.S. has plenty of corporations you can think of. The Walton Corporation, which manages Walmart, the corporation for the automotive corporations, which we're talking about Ford, Chrysler, and Chevy. Chrysler, it's just an amalgamation of different investments of the Stellantis groups. Chrysler is the foothold of the European and a little bit of Asian investors in the North American market. Ford is completely an American and North American corporation because Ford is not branched out to other. It's not fully branched out to other corporations within Europe or within Asia. They have cooperated with Mazda. They have cooperated with investments within Europe under their own name. But Ford, it's fully it's American pie. It's the most American corporation within its sector, within its industry. Then you have Chevy. Chevy is doing what Chrysler was doing, which was incorporating investments from or investors from Europe, from Asia, mostly China and Korea, South Korea, of course. And in Europe, they were incorporating investments from Germany, from England, from even from Deutschland, and from Japan. Mitsubishi and Chrysler were cooperating, and so I think you cannot. There's no political strategy. And there's no Zaibatsu, Keiretsu, Shosha in Latin America, which is going to act like a guerrilla and capture the markets, provide a product, provide a service that is tailored to the market needs within their constraints, and let him participate outsiders from Asia, from the US, from Europe, in that product development, in that service development. We don't have that strategy here in Latin America. We're letting the Chinese come here and invest because the Chinese think that we are 25 years behind in those investments. We are letting them and the Americans and the Europeans fill all those gaps in industries that we have and we're not willing to develop for ourselves. We're letting them take the whole pie. And the investment community, what they want to be making money of is just logistics and land ownership. And for me, that's a very antiquated land ownership or land capital. It's a way of doing business that it's from the Middle Ages. You should have a strategy, a grand strategy to make your own, to have a control over your region for secondary, tertiary businesses, and also resources such as landlocked resources, digital locked resources, any kind of resource that it's either information or food or energy, or you have to lock it in. You have to have control of what is going on over your region. But we see a little of that in Latin America. There are a lot of outside influences that don't like it that we have control over our own property, and inside influences within the politicians and business community that would like not to invest as much, let the outsider invest a little bit more.
There's a stake in American International Group, or AIG for short. As Japanese manufacturers moved overseas in the 1980s and 1990s, the Sogo Shoshas provided logistics and distribution support, and even entered into joint ventures. They became increasingly sophisticated in their handling of products, taking on more and more risk through investments and alliances abroad. Despite the warning signs of the Japanese bubble economy of the late 1980s and early 1990s, the Sogo Shoshas remained undeterred. They continued to invest heavily in supply sources upstream and expand into services businesses downstream, buying up more assets. Their relentless pursuit of growth led them to take on even greater risks. And even as most asset prices were inflating, the Sogo Shoshas showed no signs of slowing down. Post-bubble, low growth, a mature economy, deflation, and the Asian crisis. 1994 to 2006. But as the 1990s gave way to the new millennium, the Sogo Shoshas found themselves facing a series of devastating challenges. The IT revolution brought the world closer together, but also paved the way for new, powerful competitors. The rise of China, the globalization of markets, and the Asian crisis all combined to create the perfect storm of economic uncertainty and mega competition. Desperate to keep pace, the Sogo Shoshas recklessly invested in a number of new fields, including the IT industry, the environmental sector, and the medical healthcare business. They poured billions into broadband infrastructure, server storage, and media contents, as well as into highly advanced materials and large-scale infrastructure projects. But their ambitions proved to be their undoing. The bursting of the Japanese economic bubble, which resulted in a mature and low-growth economy, and the deflationary pressures of the deregulation the Japanese government was engaged in, all took their toll. The Sogo Shoshas were struggling with cash flow problems and mounting financial losses, and their once impregnable balance sheets were starting to show signs of strain. The credit crunch of the 1997 Asian financial crisis was the final nail in the coffin, as the bad debt portfolios of banks grew and more small and medium-sized businesses were unable to pay back their loans. The Sogo Shoshas attempted to restructure the balance sheets and revamp their management systems, but it was too little, too late. They emerged from the period of restructuring weakened, not stronger, and their once proud reputation laid in tatters. Their aggressive investment in energy, metal, and mineral resources and food commodities failed to pay off, and they found themselves struggling to compete in a rapidly changing world. From representing 5 of the 10 biggest companies in the world in 1996, they only had one representative, Mitsubishi, on the list in 2003.
The winter that we were just talking about. Yeah, winter gets rid of, well, in real life, winter gets rid of unhealthy, old life. Life forms. Winter, it's what cleanses the ecosystem of malfunctioning businesses. It also wipes out a lot of jobs. It also wipes out economic growth. It also wipes out the opportunity of many people to get inside of the economy and participate. That's why they always say you have to be ready for winter. You need to have this fattening, these accumulated resources that you are going to use to survive the winter. The Japanese economy was frozen, and I think still frozen for it's about to be 40 years, since the late 80s. It hasn't grown, but not because they don't want to. They have the biggest, it's the second largest economy next to them, which is China. And you're not going to be able to grow next to China, especially if China has this national strategy. The politicians are all cobbled up together, and there's no form of dissent within the politician community, within the business community. And also the Chinese have a very firm hand on the economy. It's mandated by the politicians that they have to grow. They have to invest. There's no free growing up individual wealth. Well, under the Chinese tones, there is no within their region. There's a lot of millionaires, new millionaires. There's a lot of new millionaires in China, but there's no. Yes? Is there a class in here? Okay, thank you very much. There's no way to you can get richer in China, you can invest in China, you can develop products, develop manufacturing capabilities in China. They have a very strong political oriented strategy. They see it as a new form of war. If you attack these long-term investments and if you are the capital of innovation, you're waging a war to the other economies around you, and you're only leaving them the top part of the economy, the tertiary economy. China is sucking up everything from below. China is sucking up everything from raw materials, from processing of those raw materials. And they don't care about the labor, they don't care about the logistics, they don't care about the whose brand is on top of that product or service. They care about making it. It's the war, the strategy that they're having. Everything has to be made on China because all of their resources are going to come to China. They are going to be the ones to decide which quality resources stay in China and which not so good quality resources go out of China. And whoever wants to buy it and put their name on it, they can take it out, sell it if they can, within their markets, but you have no control of the quality and the resources. The new strategy for me would be for new corporations or for new business owners, small or big, is first procure a safe volume of raw materials for your business. You don't have to develop the infrastructure for the business within your country. You can go to China, develop the product, develop the manufacturing layout, develop the manufacturing needs to create the product, and then bring that to your country and start planning in your country. You don't have to sell the whole volume that you sell within your country with that nationalized or landlocked manufacturing capability. You can still import from China, but when the Chinese decide that it's not politically to their advantage, letting you stay in China with that product, with that service, then pivot to whatever you have in your country or in other countries to compete, because they are letting you out of the market. They are locking you out of the international market and the Chinese market. You need to compete with your other partners. I'm not saying that you have to see China as an evil player within business. They are not an evil player within business, but you're exposing too much to the Chinese market. You cannot have that exposure. You need to have options to pivot when that option is locked. Like what happened in COVID. In COVID, China was not an option for production. Everything was locked. And if you don't have other production capabilities around yourself, where is it going to come? You need those other options, and you need to develop them. You can ask the Chinese to help you develop them. You can ask the Chinese to participate in those other investments, and tell them, when you're within a crisis, when you're not able to produce, we are going to be very happy to produce for you and give you whatever we are producing within our capabilities. I think the Chinese would much appreciate that, having that option when they are landlocked, when they are under a crisis, to have somebody to back them up while they recover. I think that's a better proposal. I think that's a better view. But it's a false dichotomy, looking at this Chinese as the evil ones and everybody else is good. No. It's better to cooperate. There's going to be some bumps. There's going to be some issues that have to be resolved. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to go like butter in a warm toast. No. But you have to engage with them. You have to let them know that you have had our back for a long time, creating all these types of investments. Let us have those kind of investments in our region. So when you need those investments because you are having a crisis, we can accommodate to help you within that crisis, to give you those resources. And you have maneuverability to get out of that crisis. That's what we have to learn from the last recession, which was the COVID recession. We should have had capabilities in Mexico, in Latin America, and Africa, and other parts of the world to create chips to feed the American market, which was booming for new cars. But cars couldn't be delivered. It's not that the Chinese have or the Taiwanese have to be the only ones manufacturing those products. It was a weakness. It's better to be prepared. That's what I think. That's what I think. It's my opinion. You're welcome to leave your opinion in this video and tell me all the ways in which I'm wrong. I will welcome them. An hour and a half for a half-an-hour video.
Part of this humiliation, the Sogo Shoshas were forced to sell many of their investments and return to a leaner and less asset-heavy structure. The resurgence of the Sogo Shoshas and their rocky future, 2006 to now. In the mid-2000s, the Japanese economy was still in a state of stagnation, and the Sogo Shoshas were facing many challenges. Globalization and the rise of other Asian economies were eating into their market share, while a rapidly aging population and a shrinking workforce were putting pressure on their bottom line. It seemed as if the heyday of these trading giants was really at an end. To survive, the Sogo Shoshas had to change their business models, as the profits from their traditional trading commissions have been increasingly uncertain, with local competitors in China, Taiwan, and Korea taking an ever-increasing share. They therefore shifted their focus towards long-term investments to provide more predictable and consistent returns. Their new investment strategy included a focus on cash flow instead of growth, with more quote-unquote boring companies in their crosshairs. For instance, Itochu, one of the largest Sogo Shoshas, acquired a stake in the Danish company Vestas Wind Systems, the world's largest wind turbine manufacturer. This investment allowed Itochu to expand its business into the renewable energy sector and establish a strong presence in the global markets. Another major strategy by the Sogo Shoshas was the acquisition of companies in emerging markets. Marubeni, another prominent Sogo Shosha, acquired a controlling stake in the Brazilian company GAGGLE Group, a leading provider of agricultural and energy commodities. This investment allowed Marubeni to tap into the growing demand for commodities in the fast-growing Brazilian market and an increase in its global reach. In addition to acquisitions, the Sogo Shoshas also invested heavily in infrastructure projects around the world. Mitsubishi Corporation, the largest Sogo Shosha, was a key investor in the development of the Kashganj power plant in India, a project aimed at providing reliable and affordable electricity to millions of people in the country. This investment helped Mitsubishi establish a strong presence in the fast-growing Indian market and contribute to the development of the country's infrastructure. Finally, the Sogo Shoshas have invested heavily in the technology sector, particularly in areas of artificial intelligence and robotics. Itochu, for example, invested in Boston Dynamics, a leading robotics company, which allowed the Sogo Shosha to expand its business into the cutting-edge technology sector and stay ahead of the curve. However, one of the biggest consequences of the Sogo Shosha's focus on cash flow was their increased investments on energy, metal, and mineral resources. Over the years, the earning of these companies had become highly dependent on the prices of these resources, with 63% of the net earnings of the top 5 Sogo Shoshas coming from these sources between 2008 and 2012. This dependence have made these companies vulnerable to the volatility of the commodity markets, leading to a decline in earnings between 2013 and 2015. However, the Sogo Shoshas have been taking steps to address this issue and reduce their dependency on natural resources. By expanding and strengthening their other business segments, they have been able to bring more balance to their profit structure and reduce the ratio of profits from energy, metal, and mineral resources. This has been reflected in the average net profits of the top 5 Sogo Shoshas, which increased from around $1.75 billion a year between 2013 and 2015 to $2.85 billion a year at the end of 2016, despite an ongoing downturn in most natural resources. Finally, there is a further challenge for the Sogo Shoshas in terms of capturing future overseas growth, as the Japanese market is saturated. Most of the population and economic growth in the coming years is expected to come from developing countries, which present both opportunities and challenges for these companies.
So what they're saying here, that the Japanese market is overpopulated. It's too many competitors. There's a lot of players within that market. There's not going to be new players. That's why you kind of see this within the Japanese people. They're not interested in creating the new business that does the same that the Chinese businesses are doing or the American businesses. There's no WhatsApp from Japan. There's no Facebook from Japan. And if there is, it's not having a great impact to capture markets outside of Japan. There is a lot of dating sites and other things from Japan, I know. They have their own, but it's not growing. And they don't have the willingness to invest money in competing. They're not even investing in, the politicians are not even regulating it. They're letting the free market, allowing the players from the outside do whatever they want with their population. Instagram, Facebook, Amazon. Yeah, there are markets for Japanese, but there's no. Amazon is selling stuff in Mexico. There's no Japanese vendor in Mexico trying to sell to Mexicans what the Japanese make. No, I'm not talking only about the auto industry. I'm talking about everything. I mean, it's like, yeah, there's going to be growth within our country or within Latin America. I know it's not going to be a huge growth, but it's better than being a slave of the Chinese, that they are really, really, really invested in having their own champions within their region, in having their own guerrillas. They are not going to let you participate like we're going to let you. And the Americans also, the Americans don't want you there. The Americans don't need you there. The Americans would rather have their own champions too, and defend them instead of dealing with you. And also in America, you're going to have a huge problem dealing with all the politicians and having to invest in the politicians' best interest. Because let's remember, the American politicians and the American politics system is set up so that people have to invest or have the opportunity to invest in their politicians' campaigns, and the politicians are always asking for money. So that's how they landlock you from entering their markets. The corporations get to invest in the right politicians.
On the one hand, these countries represent a huge potential market for the Sogo-shoshas. But on the other hand, there are significant risks and uncertainties associated with doing business in these markets. Despite these challenges, the future for the Sogo-shoshas remain bright. With their broad range of interests and expertise, these companies are well positioned to adapt and evolve in the changing global economy. By continuing to reduce their dependence on energy, metal, and mineral resources, expanding their businesses in overseas markets, and capturing growth in developing countries, the Sogo-shoshas can continue to be a dominant force in the Japanese business world for years to come. However, the stock markets have not rewarded the Sogo-shoshas' pivot, as they are still often seen as old, inflexible conglomerates with heavy administrative burdens that would dilute the profits of any investment they undertake. This mindset has changed somewhat in 2020 when Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway stepped in to invest massively in 5 of the country's leading Sogo-shoshas: Itochu, Mitsubishi, Mitsui, Sumitomo, and Marubeni. Berkshire acquired slightly more than 5% of each company and stated that it may increase its stake up to 9.9%, as well as exploring opportunities for partnerships between the Sogo Shoshas and its own businesses. This has sparked a renewed sense of optimism in the Sogo Shoshas, who are keen to work more closely with their new shareholder.
What's going on there? This is more contemporary news. The Japanese are letting the Americans. We cannot call it a second invasion of the Americans or a second colonization of the Americans, because they did colonize Japan for a while during the aftermath of World War II, but they are letting a new wave of partners. They are letting a new wave of corporations and investment funds to get in within the Japanese economy, so that those new players can participate in it and can bring more of let's say an outlook that's more stable, that brings confidence to the Japanese market. Japan has always done this. They have a great strategy for letting the business community have what they need to have secure and stable outlook, I think.
Keiretsu, in particular, have been determined to lead the resurgence of the Sogo Shoshas. The company has recently taken full control of Family Mart in a 5.5 billion transaction. With the takeover, CEO Masahiro Okafuji stated that he wanted to attack areas related to household consumption and is using Itochu's sprawling business network to do so. This investment by Berkshire Hathaway could be the catalyst for a new
We're having a pause. The video is not going forward. I'm having an internet connection issue. Let's see if we can. It's about finished. It's a half an hour video, and I just made it into a almost 2 hour video because I've been talking a lot.
Era of growth
there it
and
is.
success for the Sogo Shoshas, with their new shareholder providing support and with their proven ability to adapt and evolve. The future is looking bright for these trading conglomerates, and there is a lot more potential upside in these stocks. The Sogo Shoshas continue to trade at very low multiples compared to the overall market. For example, Mitsubishi Corporation, the largest Sogo Shosha, has a price to earnings ratio (PE) of around 8, while the overall market in Japan has a PE ratio of around 17. Similarly, Sumitomo Corporation, another large Sogo Shosha, has a PE ratio of around 9. These low multiples are indicative that there is still a lot of market skepticism towards the Sogo Shoshas and their ability to remain competitive in the face of rapidly evolving market conditions. In summary, the low multiples of the Sogo Shoshas present a potential opportunity for investors who are willing to take a long-term view and believe in the ability of these companies to continue evolving and adapting to changing market conditions. While there may be risks and uncertainties associated with investing in these stocks, the potential upside is significant for those who are patient and willing to weather any short-term volatility.
Keyword, patient. If you're patient, if you're willing to invest regarding long-term and not being blindsided for all of the noise that it's going on in the short term. If you're being blindsided, if you're letting your strategy be contaminated by the short-term noise, outside and inside noise, you're gonna suffer, because business is like farming. You need to be thinking on the long term and taking decisions to survive the short term and gain the profits that you will gain on the long term. It doesn't have to be financial profits. That's not the only thing that you're gonna get on the long term. It could be not risking your business with unfavorable business partners. Although I can tell you, I'm talking here more with my farmer hat than with my business hat. I'm not saying I'm a farmer. I'm saying I think like a farmer, and thinking like a farmer has helped me a lot to not got caught on those noises that are around me. Let's keep listening. I think the video is
I hope
over.
you have enjoyed this video until this very point.
I did.
Because this is my conclusion of the Sogo Shosha saga. With their illustrious history and their formidable influence in the world of finance and commerce, they have always been the backbone of Japan's economy. Their journey from Zaibatsus to Keiretsus and the struggles they faced in the wake of the oil shock and the 1997 Asian financial crisis have been nothing short of dramatic. But despite these challenges, the Sogo Shoshas preserved, building a reputation for themselves as innovators and trendsetters. Their storied past is one of incredible achievements and groundbreaking innovations, but it is also one of tattered remains and risky gambles. The Sogo Shoshas have experienced their share of failures, but they have learned from their mistakes and emerged stronger for it.
What I have to underline here is this. You have to survive your mistakes. You have to survive the winters that you create by yourself. And so there's this attitude to look at windows and doors as risk avoidance opportunities, not as investment opportunities. You have to take a balance. You cannot make risky investments very risky, clearly, because the winds are gonna be super high, unless you have some insider information that affirms you that you're not gonna lose. If you are in the know, if you're in the business, then yes, go ahead, risk it. It's a sure thing. But you also have to look at things that are not risky, that are gonna give you a profit. It's not gonna be a huge profit, but it's also gonna give you leverage to do other things, to engage in other things that are riskier. Having said that, I think we can keep listening to the conclusion. I know I stretch this a lot, and I want to not stretch it any further. Again, if you want to subscribe, go ahead, subscribe. Again, if you want to like, go ahead, have a like. And I hope you enjoyed listening with me this video. I'm gonna share the link, and I'm gonna put somewhere in here or here, whatever. I'm gonna put the video, but not the whole video. I'm gonna just put cyclings of the video, because the original audio is not gonna match what I'm saying. This video is a real long video. It's just me talking over a video, it's my reaction to the video and my experience. And I just want to say, take this as an open mic, as an open opportunity to share. If you wanna do your own video, share it with me. I'll be open to share it, to listen to you. It could be over TikTok, it could be over YouTube, it could be over whichever platform you would like to use, and learn from the Japanese experience in business, not only for your business life, but your personal life, for your academic life, for your professional life. I think they have had this great example for everyone. And for me, that's it. My name is Gustavo. Everybody calls me Goose. And there's nothing to do in my pueblo. And I'm doing this. I'll be doing other things. And bye-bye.